Hello. Good morning. I promise my voice is better. Grief. Happy Monday. I hope you guys are all doing well. I think things are finally calming down around my house. Knock on wood, wherever it is, I guess below me. Uh, it's been a wild couple of weeks and it's been a little crazy. So, my apologies for not being around uh, as much as I would like to be, but we should be getting back to normal, hopefully. So, hello, Flash fan. It is good to see you. It's going. It is going. Kelly, I hope the man flu has left your house. My dad is home. He's resting. He's getting there. It was a tiring 4 days because the hospital is full and my dad never actually left the emergency department. So that was interesting. But it was rough. It was rough going with my dad too. Oh, my dad. He makes me laugh. Hey, Haley Mouse, how are you? Good afternoon to you. It is afternoon here. Sorry, I said good morning. Oh my goodness. Hello, Gabby. How are you doing? And Adair, good to see you. I don't know what time it is. Probably don't even know where I am. Don't ask. But anyway, yes. So my dad had COVID. He did not have pneumonia. Thank goodness. That word scared the crap out of me, to be honest with you. I'm glad he's healthy. He told me he didn't think he would probably had made it through this if he wasn't, and I agree. He sounded like he was drowning. Like he sounded like he was talking to you underwater. He just had to keep sucking stuff out of his. It wasn't in his lungs. It was like right in here. It was, it was horrible. It was horrible to watch. Anyway, the whining and groaning. Great. My dad did not whine or groan, but because he never left the emergency room, he didn't have a bathroom in his room. He wasn't allowed out of it because he had COVID. But then when they were going to discharge him, he was allowed out all of a sudden. And so he had to get up and he needed to use the restroom. So he gets up and he's like getting ready to walk out of the room, like, Dad, you need to tie your gown up. I would prefer you not go out of the room with your rear end hanging out there, buddy. He was like, who cares? Like, I care. Like, we're tying this thing up. It was like, Dad, seriously, I hope you didn't do that when I wasn't there. Whatever. But yeah, I hope you guys everybody's well. And if you get any of this crap, I hope it doesn't last for you very long because, man, it has just been rough. But it's winter. It's what happens. All right. So I know this says day 2 on the thumbnail, but the way that Court TV has these broken up, it would not make sense for me to say part 3 or part 4. We'll just divide it up by days, even though we're not following the actual days in the courtroom. That makes sense. Yes, he was a flasher. He tried to be, but I said no. I did not let him out. I was like, no. No. Not like they haven't seen everything there. They're nurses, they're doctors, it's whatever. But yeah, no. Oh, it sounds like when you were in the hospital in 2022, you had an asthma attack. They hit me. Oh, they had you in the COVID section. Well, my dad had tested positive at the doctor's office before he ever got there. And then they just assumed he had pneumonia because of the way he sounded. Like, you literally could not understand him. If you, like, as a kid, you ever talked underwater, like in a swimming pool, that's what it sounded like. You could not understand him. And I couldn't figure out how to describe it, but one of the respiratory therapists said it sounded like he was drowning. I'm like, that's exactly what it sounds like. So yeah, it is. It is that, like I said, our hospital is full. Um, yeah. The powers that be around here decided to build a new hospital. I was actually in the hospital, in the old hospital, when they were building the new starting they had the design, and one of the techs came in, we were talking about it, and said that, they put less rooms in there, and I was like, "That's not gonna work because you're full now, and they're not all private rooms. The new one's gonna have all private rooms, and there are not as many as you have now. That's never gonna work." Guess what? It's not working. Like I said, my dad never got out of the emergency department, and there were several in there around him that were also admitted in the emergency department. So I feel sorry for the workers. I feel sorry for everyone, but everyone treated him great. So I have no complaints there, and I'm glad he didn't flash anybody. But back to Miss Wuornos. We know that she is not the first female serial unaliver because we know that Jolly Jane was out there. We know that Belle Gunness was out there. Just in our little short, like I said in the first stream, and our little short research there. And the thing that was different about Aileen Wuornos, though, is that women typically poison if they're going to unalive somebody. Like Jolly Jane, she OD'd people like with morphine, or I don't remember the other thing she used. Too many things. That's how she would do it. Belle uh, Gunness, whatever, she would put something in their meal or in their drink, and then allegedly maybe possibly hit them over the head. So she kind of was a little Aileen Wuornos there. um, but that women don't typically, she unalived this guy by using a firearm. And that's, we don't stabulate, we don't pew pew, we don't do those things. We take an easier, cleaner way out generally if we're going to do something. So, I don't think Belle fed them to her pigs. She buried them in the pig. She may have. I don't know. It's possible. Pigs will eat everything. We've talked about if you want to get rid of something, then give them to the pigs. They found remains in her pig pen, and so I don't know. And you got to think of the time. Then there's just no way of knowing if they ever found everyone. They can't even say if they found her or not, if that was her in the basement when the house burned down. They still don't know. 2017, still don't know. So, but that's kind of what made Aileen Wuornos different, is her method compared to other women that unalive people. This trial took place. It started in January of 1992. Her crimes were allegedly, I think she was arrested in January of 1991. So her crimes started like 1989-ish. By the time she went to trial, she had already confessed to 7 unalivings of men that had picked her up hitchhiking. We heard a number of, she was a lady of the night, as whatever. The state put out a number of 250,000 people that she had been with, which is, I don't know. I'm like, did you misspeak there, sir? That got to be like a record that I don't want. And I don't think she probably did either. I don't know if that number is correct, but I think he said it more than once. So that's weird and a lot. She also, at the time, you got to remember, this was back in 1992. A lot has changed. But she was in a same-sex relationship. We will hear from her girlfriend, but at the time, it was not accepted. And so they kind of acted like she was like a deviant for living this kind of lifestyle. And So keep that in mind, that this is 30 years old. 30 plus years old. Don't make me do math. Don't make me do it. So there's that. She claims all of the unalivings were in self-defense. She's only on trial for the one of 52-year-old Richard Mallory, which was allegedly her first victim. And they do use the 6 other people that she confessed to. They use them as evidence in this trial as well. One other thing I want to mention is Flashman had mentioned that people felt like this judge wasn't fair, that maybe she didn't get a fair trial. So if you're watching this and you see anything that you think is off or maybe wasn't fair that the judge did, take a note of it. And when we get through this, then we can go back and we can discuss those things and kind of look at stuff. So if you see something, take a note, make a timestamp, like where it was at, what day on here it was. That'll give me a chance to go back and look at it. So I don't know yet. We've only seen one witness, and that was the sheriff's deputy that arrived and found Richard Mallory's remains. So that was the only witness that we saw. Also, I'm going to keep these streams still shorter because I want to make this trial. I don't want to do like a 6-hour stream. So I want people to be able to, if they're watching on replay, not have just, such a daunting, like, oh my gosh, I don't have 8 hours to watch this. Don't blame you. So I'm going to try to keep them under 2 hours. We'll see how it goes. So we watched opening statements. We watched the Volusia County Sheriff's Deputy. And then, so today we are going to, the first witness that we're going to see is investigator James Downing, then detective James, I don't know if it looks like Milady. And then parole officer Jeff Davis, which I thought that was a interesting witness to have. So I'm very curious what they have to say. And then we should be able to get in Daniel Radcliffe, Linda Miller, Jenny Ahern, and Carl Clifford. Possibly the forensic pathologist. If we don't get the forensic pathologist in today, then we will start with him on Wednesday. Barring anything happening, I plan to be here. So that's my plan. The only thing that could happen is my times might be a little off because I don't know about doctor's appointments, that sort of thing, which could come up just out of the blue. But I should be good. I should be good. Now, make sure you let me know how the sound is. It's been really, really good. A lot better than our current court cases, which I think is because I was listening to a hearing in Judge Simpson's courtroom, and she said something, and I was like, that's why. She said that microphone up there is not to amplify your voice, it's to record you. These microphones up there that he's talking to looks like they are to amplify your voice and maybe record you. Can we not do both, people? There's also no closed captionings on this one again. There was only closed captioning so far in that first video, so I apologize. But here we go.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you tell us your full name and your place of employment?
James Downing. I'm an investigator for the Medical Examiner's Office, Volusia County, Daytona Beach.
And how long have you been employed with the Medical Examiner's Office?
For 5 years.
Could you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury some of the duties that you have as an investigator for the Medical Examiner's Office?
Objection, Your Honor.
We get the initial call advised by the police department of a death that occurs within Volusia County that is a other than shall I say of natural means.
Objection, Your Honor. Overruled.
Florida State Statute 406 defines that we take jurisdiction.
We don't have to do that, just what you do.
Okay, well, we get the call from the police agency, whoever it is, and we determine from the phone call whether or not we will respond to the scene, investigate the scene along with the police agency to determine the manner and cause of death.
Were you on duty on December 13th, 1989?
Yes, sir, I was.
During the course of your official duties, you had an occasion to go out and assist the police in the reclamation of the body that was found in the Ormond Beach area of Volusia County.
Yes, sir, I did.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk, may I see the photographs?
Has the defendant seen these that you have here?
Yes, sir.
I've never seen
Just a moment to separate some.
either side object over somebody saying what they do. It's fine with me. We didn't need to go through it all. Hello, sir. Frank Otter. You can get some weather, I think.
Sir, let me show you what has been marked as an exhibit for identification purposes at this time that states E2 for identification. Ask you if you can recognize that photograph.
Yes, sir, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the scene as you saw it on December the 13th, 1989?
Yes, sir, it was.
Let me show you, sir, what has been placed in evidence. Excuse me, what is marked for identification purposes that states E4 for identification purposes. Ask you if that is a fair and accurate representation of the scene as you saw it at that time.
Yes, sir, it is.
I show you, sir, what has been previously introduced in evidence and admitted as evidence that states 8-1 and 8-2, a composite exhibit. I ask you if you can recognize those photographs.
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate representations of the scene that you were described to the jury that you went to on December 13th, 1989?
Yes, sir, they are.
Let me show you also for the purpose of identification, sir. States E composite 5. E5, sir. Is that a fair and accurate representation of the scene as you saw it on December the 13th, 1989?
Yes, it is.
And let me show you, sir, what is in marked. It states L 1 and 2. Do you recognize those photographs?
Yes, sir, I do.
Those, along with the other photographs that I've shown you at this time, do they fairly and accurately represent the scene as you saw it on December the 13th, 1989?
Yes, they do.
Lastly, let me show you, sir, what is in marked. It states Q for identification purposes. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And sir, does that photograph fairly and accurately represent the scene as you saw it on December the 13th, 1989?
Yes, sir, it does.
Now, if I may, sir, can you describe the scene as you observed it for the first time on December 13th, 1989? What was the condition of the human remains when you arrived?
No objection to the witness refreshing himself with the photographs or any other document if he needs to.
No, really, record see.
I said no objection, Judge, I'm sorry. They were saying it.
So you wanted a record to reflect?
Yeah, if you'd like to, that's fine with us.
Could you describe the scene as you observed it when you arrived on December 13th?
Okay, the scene was a wooded area off of US 1, approximately 1/2 of a mile north of I-95 in Volusia County. It was off of the southbound side, and there is a trail which is represented by this photo that we showed here, and this is quite relatively accurate.
I
As
object to the publication.
At this time, without showing the
Okay.
photo, let's describe what you observed.
Okay.
Don't give it the photo.
there was a trail leading off into the woods, which was the first thing I saw from the roadway.
And what, if anything, did you see after making those initial observations?
Well, I met with the sheriff's deputies that were there, and they told me that you had to follow the trail back in for a short ways, and that that's where the body was that they had reported to me over the phone.
Did you see anyone there other than law enforcement officials at that time?
And upon my initial response,
When you arrived.
when I arrived there initially-
Outside.
I'm not absolutely positive. There was some news media there later, but I don't know when I got there, at what point they arrived.
Okay, sir. But in relationship to where the body was, were any of the news media allowed?
Oh, no, just up by the roadway. There was a line placed across the entrance, and they weren't allowed to pass.
What do you mean by a line?
Just a crime scene line, either just marked as nobody could go past this particular point.
Or that to keep unauthorized personnel from coming in and contaminating a possible scene?
Yeah, that's correct.
Objection, leaving the room.
Rephrase the question.
You know the purpose of that cordon being set off?
Yeah, it's to keep unauthorized personnel off the scene.
Thank you, sir. All right. Did you follow the trail that you described to the location of the body?
Yes, I did.
The photographs that you have before you fairly accurately depict what you observed.
Yes, they do.
What was the condition of the actual location where the body was in relationship to anything in the way of a covering?
Oh,
Objection leading, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
You can answer.
okay. When I arrived, there was what appeared to be a small hump in the natural foliage that was covered by a maroon with a black trim rug, the type that you see in front of a business, the type that they take on and off and clean and like in front of a business. It was a good sized rug and it almost completely covered the body that was eventually removed from underneath the rug.
At this time, Your Honor, the state would offer what has been previously marked as exhibits in evidence.
Yeah,
With the court's permission, may the clerk mark.
yeah, let her mark one, the one that I admitted, one didn't I admit one?
Yes, they had no objection, Your Honor, as I understood it, to E2.
E2, no objection, Your Honor.
E2. That's the one you have to mark.
That'd be state exhibit 9.
Well, the clerk is marking it, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Sir, what you've previously identified as scenes at the location on December the 13th, 1989, for the record, as being states E5 composite, L1, Q, and L2. State would move in as evidence at this time, Your Honor.
Counsel, did you see these? These were approaching you.
Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Downing,
Yes, sir.
what has now been admitted as states 9 in evidence, and what was previously admitted as states 8-1 in evidence. Is that the condition of the scene when you first arrived prior to the rug being removed from the body?
Yes, it is.
And sir, subsequent to the rug being removed from the body, who didn't remove the rug, if you know?
I think, I believe it was a combination of one of the sheriff's investigators and myself. We rolled the rug back. I really don't have a complete independent recollection of who actually removed the rug at this point, no.
Okay, were you present on the rug?
Yes, I was.
Did you document the condition of the body as you saw it while the rug was being removed and subsequent to the rug being removed?
Yes, I took photographs at every stage.
What was the condition of the body when you first observed it after the rug had been removed from it? In which way was it facing in relationship to the ground?
It was laying face down on the ground.
Okay, is that represented fairly in states 10 for identification?
Well, when we first removed the rug, there was either 1 or 2 pieces of cardboard that were laying over across the top of the back, which is represented right in here when they were removed. But after they were removed, this accurately represents the position of the body. The body was not moved, just the things that were on top of it.
Solely for the positioning of the body as you observed it after those articles were removed, this is a fair and accurate representation.
And that is correct, yes.
Now, did there come a point in time, Judge, may we publish these at this time?
Yes, sir. Those are admitted in evidence.
Yes, sir.
That's 8 and 9, Your Honor.
Mr. Moore.
Your Honor, that would be number 10 that was admitted by the court. Numbers 8, 1, and 9.
Subject to previous objection, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Downing,
Yes, sir.
after the rug was removed from the body, can you describe what, if anything, you did in relationship to the removal of the body and what you observed?
Okay. The standard procedure in this and what we did in this particular situation is that we lay a sheet on the ground alongside of the body, and it was rolled over or picked up and set down over onto the sheet on its back.
Can you describe the articles of clothing that you observed at that time?
Correct. There was blue jeans, a white T-shirt, and a Cordovan type maroon shoes, leather type shoes, and blue socks.
Can you describe whether or not the body had a belt buckle on it? A belt, excuse me.
Yes, it was a brown leather belt.
What was the condition of the individual's pants?
They were, the pockets, that were turned inside out on the pants pockets.
Was that as you first observed them?
Yes,
That was immediately upon the body being turned over, is that correct?
yes, yes, sir.
How about the individual zipper? Did you look at it at that time?
No, I didn't observe that, no.
Was anything done to disturb in any way the individual's clothing as you removed the body?
No,
Those photographs, states Q, states L, and states E5, fairly and accurately depict the body as you first observed it in the downward position, and then after it was rolled over into the upward position.
yes, sir, they do.
And that, do they fairly and accurately depict the condition of the pants, the shirt, and the belt, as well as the zipper that is contained in the photographs?
Yes, sir, they do.
Now, what, if anything, did you do with the individual that you found at the scene on that date? What is the next procedure?
We then place a body bag that we use for removal, and the sheet is wrapped around the body, and then the body in the sheet is placed into the body bag, and the zipper is placed closed on it for the removal, which we did at this scene.
Okay, now, once the body is removed, where does it go?
Normally, we take it to Halifax Hospital, to the morgue, which is where we do our autopsies. Due to the advanced state of the decomposition in this particular case, we have rules with Halifax that we couldn't do that, so it was removed and placed in the cooler at Bellevue Cedar Hill Funeral Home for the night.
And did you attend an autopsy in regard to the remains that were found at the scene on December 13th, 89, the following day?
The following day, yes, sir, I did.
Let me show you, sir, what has been marked for exhibit purposes. The states M1 through 4. May I approach your honor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, do you recognize those photographs?
Well, yes, I do.
Those photographs fair and accurate representations of the remains that were removed from the scene on December 13th, 1989 to the medical examiner's office for autopsy purposes on December 14th, 1989.
Yes, they are.
Is it one of the same body?
Yes, it is.
Are they fair and accurate representations
Yes.
prior to the actual autopsy procedures themselves beginning?
Yes.
Now, sir, in regard to the hands that the individual is shown in states M composite, are they still in substantially the same condition as they were when you first saw them at the scene on December the 13th, 1989?
Yes, that's exactly the same way they were.
They were not disturbed or removed in any?
No, sir, they were not.
Now, can you describe, sir, what, if any, procedure would be followed by the medical examiner's office in regard to Mr. Mallory's body?
From this point here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we would, Dr. Botting, the medical examiner at that time, would have instructed us after these photographs were taken to remove the clothing, which was done. And when it was taken in sections, the first thing to have been removed in this case would have been the shirt.
And do you know what, if anything, was done with the shirt after it was removed from the body?
It was placed into a paper bag. It was, and the bag was marked and sealed, and all of the clothing at the end of the autopsy was turned over to the Volusia County Sheriff's Department.
Are you familiar with Investigator Lapp?
Yes, sir.
You know whether or not you turned the bag over to him?
Yeah, everything, all the evidence in this case was turned over to Jim Lau.
How about the individual's pants?
Yes, the shirt, the pants, the shoes, and the socks were all turned over to Jim Lau on that day, 12/14 of '89.
Now, were you present during the autopsy?
Yes, sir, I was.
And during the course of that autopsy, were the victim's hands removed for fingerprint identification purposes?
Yes, they were.
And to whom did you give those hands?
I released them also to Investigator Jim Lau.
And subsequent to Mr. Lau obtaining those hands with a report given back to your office as to the identity of the victim, Mr. Mallory?
Yes, they were.
And was his death certified by the medical examiner's office?
Yes,
As
yeah.
Richard Mallory.
Yes, sir. Richard Charles Mallory.
Objection, Your Honor, also the witness was involved in the certification process.
May I further correct this, sir?
So I'll do that without the body.
All right, sir.
Please, the court, at this time, state with offer what has been previously introduced as an exhibit. Excuse me, Judge, at this time, the state will not make any tender at this time. Sir, did you conduct any further testing at the behest of Dr. Body with regard to attempting to determine the cause of death?
Yes, a full autopsy was conducted by Dr. Botting at this time, yes.
And were any x-rays produced in regard to attempting to determine what would cause Mr. Mallory's death?
Yes, there
Objection,
were.
unless the witness was involved in the X-raying process.
Were you involved in the x-raying process?
There's two of us in the office that do the x-raying process. We set up the x-ray machine, we take the x-rays and we process them. We both do it jointly together, and I did assist in the x-raying process on this. Yes, I did.
Were you present when it occurred?
Yes, I did. Yes, I was.
Withdrawn.
So you may,
Pardon? Okay, no, I'm sorry.
you can answer the question.
Oh, yes, I was involved and there were x-rays taken.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. No further questions.
Who's in the cross?
I just want to.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Downing, feel free to, again, look at the photographs and any other reports that you have that will assist your recollection during the testimony.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any reports pertaining to this case that you may have brought with you?
I have the entire medical examiner's file on this case. Yes, I do.
And do you have that with you?
Yes, sir.
Do you have the medical examiner's report in that file?
His autopsy report? Yes, I did.
Feel free to look at the photographs. The individual depicted in the photographs has both his shoes, does he not?
Yes, sir, he does.
And he has 2 pairs of socks, correct?
Yes, he does.
What was the height of the individual?
The height?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have a height listed for him, a height or a weight listed for him in the
You don't have
file.
either a height or a weight listed
No.
for him? Did you ever ascertain or make any attempt to ascertain his height or weight, you yourself?
Myself personally, no.
Did the medical examiner ever make any effort to ascertain his height or weight?
That,
Your Honor, that's best answered by the medical examiner.
Withdraw, Your Honor. Were you involved in carrying the body away from the scene?
in carrying it away from the scene,
Yeah, were you one of the folks who picked it up and
No.
carried it away? Who did that?
the county has a livery service under contract that does the actual removal for the county.
And how did that happen? You indicated a sheet was picked up and the body was put in a bag. How did the body get from the floor into the vehicle to the medical examiner?
Well, as I indicated, the sheet is placed alongside the body, and the body is picked up and rolled. Since the body was face down, if it had been face up, it would have been just lifted over. But in this case, it was face down, so it's turned over and rolled over and laid down on the sheet on its back. The sheet is rolled over the top of the body, and then the body in the sheet is placed inside the body bag, which is then placed alongside the bag, placed into the body bag. The bag is sealed, and we had it laying there when the removal service arrived. And then the removal service just picked it up, set it on their gurney, and then the the gurney was taken out back out to the vehicle, wherever they had it placed at this point. I don't remember where they had it.
Do you recall who the individual was that placed the body on the gurney? Individual or individuals?
Yes, it was a Mr. Leonard Wager, Wager. He's the normal transport man that runs the delivery service.
The cardboard that you talked about on direct examination, did you take any photographs of that?
Yes, it appears in this photograph, and it also appears in another photograph that I have in position before it was removed.
Do you recall the condition of the belt buckle?
Independently, no, I don't, other than what it shows in the picture, but I don't, which is kind of a little bit hard to see, but I don't, let me see, let me check this. I don't have any really independent recollections. A little difficult to tell from this photograph.
Okay, so you don't recall if it was right up front, turned over to the side, exactly where it was on the body, you don't recall that?
No, I don't.
You indicated you have the autopsy report with you?
Yes, it's here in the file. Like I said, I have the whole file.
And you were actually present at the autopsy procedure?
Yes, I was.
During the autopsy procedure, you indicated there were items of clothing that were taken from the body and inventory.
That's correct.
And those included socks,
Yes,
shoes,
yes,
pants,
yes,
a shirt.
yes.
Did he have any underwear on?
I don't believe so. There's no notation in the file on the file. I don't believe he had any underwear on.
Thank you, sir.
Redirect.
Just have to pause for just a second so I don't get in trouble. I think when you don't have anything to ask, you ask the kind of questions that the defense was just asking. Because does it matter? I mean, today we would expect them to have it. They should have it. His height, his weight, but probably the forensic pathologist will have it. Some of those questions he asked, I was like, who cares? But you got to ask them. And they don't have anything. What are they going to say? She confessed she didn't mean it. She was there. She didn't mean it. Like, okay. Also, I couldn't post the comment because YouTube keeps rejecting my comments. But Sir Frank Otter, roller derby is hardcore. So hats off to you. Wow.
Yes, sir. This is Macro.
Yes, sir.
Investigator Downing, since counsel has offered to allow you to refresh your recollection, would you take a close look at the belt buckle in regard to the autopsy picture, which is Exhibit M2 for identification?
Yes, sir.
Okay, doesn't that indicate that that belt and the belt buckle are to the side? Or can you describe to the jury what you see in the photograph?
Okay. The belt
For the
buckle.
record, Mr. DeMore is leafing through a number of photographs. And pointing things out.
Referring to M4, if you would look, please, sir, and tell me what
Admitted in evidence.
No, Your Honor.
Judge Heed offered to allow him to refresh the recollection.
Fresh memory, don't tell look at it, refresh memory, but don't testify.
Yes.
The
Having refreshed are you able to refresh your recollection from looking at the photographs?
and from the photographs, they do show that the belt buckle is off to the left about I'd say 4 to 6 inches off to the left, towards the left side of the body, in position in the belt.
Let me show you it has been previously marked for identification purposes. That states L1 for identification. Ask if that helps you to refresh your recollection.
Oh yeah, it's
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled, answer the question if you can.
yeah, the belt is definitely off to the left-hand side of the body.
In the same condition at the scene as it is at the medical
Yes,
examiner's office?
yes, almost exactly the same position. Yes.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may this witness be excused subject
Let's see if
to...
there's any recross.
No recross.
Any keep the witness or may he be discharged?
Your Honor, we would like to have him subject to further recall.
You may stand down. You're discharged subject to recall. We'll give a telephone number to the state where you can be contacted. You may depart. You are one of the rule and is do not discuss the testimony of the case is concluded.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, may I gather report documents?
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Deputy James Mulady. I'm employed by the Volusia County Sheriff's Department as a deputy sheriff. I've been employed for approximately 4.5 years.
On December the 13th, 1989, were you on duty as deputy sheriff?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir, were you called to a homicide scene?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the jury where that was?
It was approximately 3/4 of a mile north of I-95 on US 1 in Ormond Beach.
Sir, I ask you to, Your Honor, may you step down momentarily?
Yes, sir.
Look at the chart and after you step down, which is identified as State's Exhibit Number 7, and see if you can find
Milady flash fan. See, I said it right too. No, he didn't say it like that, but might as well. Yes, they had some epic mustaches, some epic audio.
on that northeast Volusia County map, the location to which you were dispatched and at which you made the observations about which you will shortly testify.
Yes, sir, right here with table number 1.
Sir, may you return, Your Honor. When you arrived at the scene, sir, was anyone else there?
I had contacted 2 subjects at the gas station just south of the scene, a James Davis and a James Bonchi, and they directed me to the scene.
When you arrived at the scene, can you tell the jury what you saw?
They directed me to the path back in the woods. I had walked back in the woods approximately 50 yards, and there I observed a red carpet. Upon closer examination, I observed a human hand protruding out from under the carpet.
All right, sir. And did you do anything to disturb the scene of the carpet or where you saw the hand at that time?
No, sir. I made some observations. Once I noticed the human hand, I made the observation that the area was littered with debris and garbage. Then exited the woods and secured the scene and notified the supervisor and the major case unit.
All right, sir, I'd ask you to look at exhibits 8, 1, and 9 and ask if those photographs truly and accurately depict the scene that you described of the hand protruding underneath the carpet.
Yes, sir. I think the carpet in the picture, it's hard to tell. At the scene, you could tell it was more of a red, brighter red color. I guess because of the lighting, you can't see that too good here.
Okay, so there's a slight color distinction between what you observed and what the photograph represents?
Yes. The carpet was, like I said, a brighter red color, like kind you would find in front of inside a supermarket door or store.
Well, my question is does that truly accurately depict the scene? Is that the scene or is that a different carpet?
No, that's definitely the scene. Like I said, I guess because of the lighting in the picture, you just can't tell the redness of the carpet.
Okay. Same carpet?
Yes.
To your knowledge, had anyone disturbed that scene before you arrived there?
No, sir.
Were you there when the carpet was removed from the body?
Yes, sir, briefly.
Did you observe the body being rolled over after the carpet was removed?
Yes, sir.
Did you observe the condition of the body?
Yes, briefly. It was in a state of decomposing parts of the body.
Can you describe the pants?
Excuse me?
What type of pants, if the body was wearing pants?
Long pants, slacks. I noticed on the pants, the front pockets had been turned inside out.
All right, sir, and what about the zipper?
The zipper was up and the pants were fastened.
I'd like you to examine Exhibit Q for identification. Does that photograph fairly and accurately depict the condition of the victim's pants at the time the body was rolled over at the scene to which you just described?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, please, the state would offer that exhibit in evidence.
Counsel, would you read this item?
Not sure, Judge. Let's take a look.
Did anyone from the representative of the medical examiner's office come to the scene while you were there?
Yes, sir.
Has the body been disturbed before the ME investigator arrived?
No.
And were you there when the ME made his initial observations at the scene?
Yes, sir.
Do you know who that ME investigator was?
James Downing from the medical examiner's office.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any inquiry? Yes, please.
No question, Your Honor.
You need to keep the witness or maybe discharged.
Maybe discharge, Your Honor. Thank you.
Do you need a phone number?
We can reach you, Judge. Thank you.
So this next witness coming up, so I'm sorry, is the parole officer. Very curious to see what they have to say. And then it will go into, should go into the next video. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you guys something. I keep getting these freaking text messages that are like, you need to sign these papers for this loan. I didn't apply for a loan. Please leave me alone. It's like, oh my gosh. Oh. The courtroom is lit by candles. Don't get Flash Fan started. Don't give him any more fuel for the fire.
You need to hand that in the car, sir. If you're telling the rule, I need you're not discussing testimony or case.
John, please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your full name?
My name is Jeffrey Russell Davis.
And where are you employed, sir, if you are so employed?
I am a probation and parole officer for the Florida Department of Corrections, sir.
And sir, let me call your attention back to the early evening hours of November the 30th, 1989. Can you tell us where you were employed at that time?
At that time, sir, I worked for Richard Mallory at Mallory Electronics.
And how long did you know Mr. Mallory?
A little over a year and a half, sir.
Can you tell us when the last time it is that you saw Richard Mallory?
It was on the evening of November 30th, 1989, sir, as we closed the shop at approximately 6:15 in the evening.
And were you familiar with Mr. Mallory's motor vehicle?
Yes, sir, I was.
So let me show you, was marked as an exhibit, states V for identification and states U for identification. I ask you if you're able to recognize either of the objects contained in those photographs.
Yes, sir, I am. The picture on the left.
So without describing it at this point, please the court to state, is it a fair and accurate representation of the individual you described to the jury as your employer, Richard C. Mallory, as of November the 30th, 1989?
Yes, sir, it is.
Please the court to state what offers states evidence, states U for identification.
State what?
States U for identification, states evidence. Let me ask you, sir, you can identify what is contained in states V for identification if you've ever seen that automobile before.
Yes, sir, I have. That's Mr. Mallory's personal vehicle.
Is there anything about that car that is different than when you last saw it?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell the jury what that is, if anything?
Mr. Mallory used to have a Florida Gator, University of Florida Fighting Gator tag attached to the front of the vehicle, sir. And it is missing in this photograph.
Sir, during the course of your knowing Mr. Mallory, have you ever attended any parties together?
Yes, sir, we have.
And could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on that occasion, did Mr. Mallory have a camera?
Yes, sir, he did.
Can you describe that camera to the jury?
It was a Polaroid Instamatic camera. It was a unique color. It was sort of a maroonish or a deep raspberry color Polaroid camera.
Your Honor, please the court, I apologize for this. I thought I had a photograph in my possession. I have to go to another room to get it. Will the court take a 2-minute recess?
We'll be taking that away for you.
Yes, sir, I'll hurry.
We won't go up. Single place.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please, the court. So let me show you the marked identification versus states X and states W for identification. Ask you if you recognize those photographs, and if you do you recognize the individual portrayed in the photographs?
Yes, sir. These photographs were taken at a combination of my birthday and graduation from the University of South Florida. The individual pictured in there is myself, and this is at my grandmother's residence.
Now, when those photographs were taken, can you tell us whether or not the camera you described to the jury as being Mr. Mallory's contained in the photographs?
Yes, sir, it is.
Please, the court, the state would offer states W and states X for identification purposes. States
Yes. Have more here. More video here.
Try to save counsel a walk. State G for identification purposes described by the witness as Mr. Mallory's automobile. If you can identify that object.
Yes, sir. This is Mr. Mallory's camera. This is
the
the,
camera that was viewed in photographs you could describe that was entered into evidence today.
yes, sir. It is.
It's not the discussion we had at the bench conference. Mr. Marcia used.
Go ahead, let him testify.
Yes, sir. That is the camera that is in the photographs.
Please, the court, the state would offer states Y for identification as state's evidence.
May we approach the front?
Yes, sir, but I think you can just stand right there, though.
Your Honor, it's a foundation infection.
Sustained at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Nothing further.
Yes, sir.
You may inquire.
And then on.
Yes.
Mr. Davis, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you, sir.
My name is Billy Nolas, and along with Mr. Miller and Ms. Jenkins, I represent Ms. Wuornos in this case. Do you know an individual by the name of Jacqueline Davis?
Yes, sir, I do.
And who is she?
She is my mother, sir.
How did you get the job with Mr. Mallory?
I asked him for the job.
And how was it that you met Mr. Mallory?
I met Mr. Mallory through my mother, sir.
Was there ever a time when Mr. Mallory and your mother were seeing each other?
Yes, sir, they were.
Were they seeing each other on November 30th?
No, sir, at that time they had separated.
Do you know why they had separated?
Objection, Your Honor.
If he has knowledge, he can answer.
No, sir, I do not know why they separated.
Had they separated on occasions prior to that?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance outside the scope.
It's outside the scope. Sustained objection.
The camera that you discussed, just so that I understand it, that was a camera that was depicted in the photograph. In other words, the camera is in the photograph.
Yes, sir, it is.
Did your mother ever comment to you on what she thought of Mr. Mallory?
No, sir, I did not involve myself in a personal relationship.
Can I have one, sir?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Any regret?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
They need to keep the witness or may be excused.
Your Honor, may be excused subject to potential recall at a later time.
And subject to recall by the defense. Your Honor.
Yes, sir. If you will leave a telephone number with the state attorney and defense counsel, you may depart. You are under a rule, sir, that if you're not to discuss your testimony until this case is concluded.
Yes, sir.
My name is Daniel Thomas Radcliffe, and I'm a crime laboratory analyst working in the crime scene section at the Orlando Regional Crime Laboratory.
We have closed captions. Okay. Hello, Carmen. Good to see you. Got here just in time for glasses, because all these witnesses have great glasses that apparently are back in style today. Nice of you to join us. Hope you're doing well.
And could you tell the jury, please, who you work for?
I work for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
And how long have you been so employed?
I've been employed with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement since October of 1981.
And do you have a special?
All right, give me a second, because this looks weird. There we go.
Specialty, or are you assigned to a particular division with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
I work in the crime scene section of the Orlando Regional Crime Laboratory and also in the gunshot residue section.
All right, sir. And can you tell the jury, please, your training and experience that prepared you for your current role?
Yes, sir. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Indiana State University, majoring in biology with a minor in chemistry. I worked as a forensic scientist since 1974. In the specialty of crime scene examinations, I went through the crime scene training program in 1985, completed the training program at the Sanford Regional Crime Laboratory, and started working as a crime scene analyst in 1986. And I've worked as a crime scene analyst since that time.
All right, sir. Have you ever been qualified as an expert in the field of analyses of crime scenes and criminal courts in the state of Florida?
Yes, sir, I have.
Your Honor, please, we would so tend Mr. Radcliffe.
You may inquire, sir.
I have no questions.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, please tenure Mr. Radcliffe as an expert in the field of crime scene analysis and investigation. Mr. Radcliffe, did you have occasion to examine an automobile in connection with the homicide of Richard Malley?
Yes, sir, I did.
And I would ask you to look at Exhibit 13, in evidence asked if you recognize the vehicle.
Yes, I do.
Does that appear to be the vehicle about which you will shortly testify?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. I would also ask you to examine for identification exhibits composite N, 3, 4, and 6, and also exhibit for identification double A. And I'll ask you to indicate whether or not you recognize what each of those exhibits represent. You don't need to tell us what they are, but do you recognize what they are?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. And also the item of material that is in the envelope, would you examine that? I believe that's double A for identification. You may take the material out and look at the actual exhibit which is inside. recognize it?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, sir. Can you tell the jury in connection with this case what the photographs represent that I tendered to you? And I would ask, well, yeah, what do the 3 interior photographs represent?
This particular photograph shows the.
Object to publishing to the jury prior to being admitted, Your Honor?
What I'd like to do is first describe what they represent. Now I ask you if that's a true and accurate depiction, and then we'll offer them in evidence, and then we publish it.
Yes, sir.
What do the photographs represent?
The first photograph that I'm looking at shows the interior of this vehicle, which is a 77 Cadillac. The second photograph that I'm looking at shows the trunk area of this 77 Cadillac. And the third photograph shows the driver's seat of this 1977 Cadillac.
And you previously identified the 77 Cadillac from the exhibit that has already been admitted into evidence, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, sir. Could you identify from the back of the interior photographs? I think they are composite exhibit N, 3, 4, and another number. One is N. You see the N?
Yes, sir.
N.
This photograph is in composite 4. This photograph is in composite 6. This photograph is in composite 3.
And those are the photographs about which you just testified?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we would offer the photographs and evidence this time.
Counsel, Jerry Clement, photograph.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
Let the item be received and marked in evidence by the proper number. Mr. Kenner, would you give the evidence?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. And sir, would you look at the fabric which is contained in an exhibit in double A for identification? That envelope was opened in court moments before you came in. Do you recognize the contents of the envelope?
Yes, sir, I do.
And can you tell the jury and the court what the contents are?
This manila envelope contains upholstery from the back area of the driver's seat of this 1977 Cadillac.
They belong to Ms. Mallory?
Yes, sir.
I think the question is unclear.
I think I can rephrase it.
All right, sir. Clear it up. Let me sustain it as that. The way it's phrased.
Thank you. You recognize photograph 13?
Yes, sir.
Is that the Cadillac automobile from which the upholstery was removed?
Yes, it was.
What did you do when you removed the upholstery?
Objection assumes the fact not evidence.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you have the upholstery from the Cadillac in your possession?
Yes, I do.
Is that it contained in exhibit double A for identification?
Yes, sir.
How did you remove it and what did you do with it? And what was
Same
the purpose?
objection, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead.
How did you remove it and what did you do with it?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Second, overruled.
I removed this piece of upholstery using a scalpel, and I then placed this fabric in this manila envelope and sealed up the manila envelope.
All right, sir. Did you run any tests on the material yourself?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell the court and the jury what type of test you ran on it?
Yes, sir. I submitted a stained area on this upholstery to what's called the Kastle-Meyer test, which is a presumptive test for blood.
All right, sir. And could you tell the jury what the results of that test was?
Yes, this test indicated that these stains were blood.
With regard to the photograph of the automobile that shows the interior, could you describe with regard to exhibit 14-2 how your testimony concerning the upholstery relates to that photograph, if it does?
Yes, sir. The upholstery that's in this manila envelope is the upholstery that came from the stained area that's apparent in this photograph.
Your Honor, please, we offer the upholstery sample of evidence this time.
Counsel?
No objection.
That data be received and marked in yours that proper number.
It's number 15.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
You may inquire.
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honor.
I recommend you get it down. May, the witness excused?
May, Your Honor.
Subject to recall.
Yes, sir. If you'll give a telephone number.
Please,
You
the
may
court.
inquire.
Ma'am, would you tell us your full name, please?
My name is Linda DeJong Miller,
And is it Miss or Mrs.?
Mrs.
Miss Miller, do you have a place of employment?
Yes, I do.
And where is that, ma'am?
I work at OK Pawn Shop,
How long have you been working at that establishment?
about 3 years.
And are you in any relationship to the owner of that business?
Yes, I am. He's my father, Robert DeJong.
Ma'am, were you working there on or about December the 6th, 1989?
Yes, sir, I was.
And could you tell us a little bit about what your duties would have been back on December the 6th, 1989 in regard to what particularly you would do in your job description?
Okay. Someone will come into the shop and bring an item of value, and we will determine at that time how much we will loan on that item. And then we take a picture positive ID card. We notate the information off of the ID card onto the form, putting the number and the description of the person. We name the items. We put the serial number, the model number, the types, brands of whatever the situation is. We have them initial it and sign it and give us a thumbprint, and then we initial it and give them the money.
Now, when you indicate that you obtain some type of identification,
Yes, sir.
can that be in the form of driver's license or other picture identification?
Yes, sir.
And the thumbprint that you mentioned, how is that placed upon the document you described?
We hand the thumbprint pad to the person, and they place their thumbprint into it, and then they put their thumbprint onto our form.
Was it your policy then and now to observe that individual both signing and putting the thumbprint on the document?
Yes, sir. We don't leave them until we've seen them put the thumbprint on the form.
Could you tell, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the business that you're in, how many people, how many members of the public would you say you come into contact or were coming into contact back in December of 1989 on a daily basis?
We see anywhere from 20 to 30 people a day doing this.
Ma'am, let me show you that approach on.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, let me show you the mark that states K for identification purposes.
Okay.
Ask you if you can identify this document. First of all, do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
If you were able to recognize it, could you explain to the court and the jury how you were able to recognize it?
Okay, this is a regulation form from the OK Pawn Shop. And I see that I'm the one that took this. I've got my initials down here. What else do you want to know about it?
Your initials, are they placed there by you in the presence of the individual who has pawned the items?
Yes, sir, they are.
And does the pawn slip also indicate what the nature of those items are that are pawned?
Yes, sir, it does.
And you take some type of identification as to this bet you can serial numbers
Yes, sir.
and assess a value to that.
Yes, sir.
And that value, is that something that is an offer that you make as the person receiving the pawned item to the individual who is giving it to you?
That's right.
And if they don't like that amount, then they don't have to accept it. They walk off with the item. Is that correct?
That's true. They can take it someplace else.
Okay. Now the thumbprint,
Yes, sir.
which is on the exhibit before you,
Yes, sir.
was that placed there by an individual in your presence?
Yes, sir, it was.
And is this document kept in the ordinary course of the business?
Yes, it is.
Please, the court, the state would offer this exhibit as states evidence.
May we see the document here?
Yes, sir. First witness.
Ma'am, the exhibit that you have before you,
Yes, sir.
is it my understanding that you are the individual who took in the pawn?
Yes, I did.
And does that document fairly and accurately depict the items, if any, that were pawned by the individual who placed the thumbprint on the pawn ticket?
Yes, sir. Do you want to know what the items are?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there was a 35 millimeter camera. It was a Minolta Freedom 200, and the serial number is here and how much I loaned her on it. And then there was a radar detector, a Micronta Road Patrol X, and the serial number is notated here and how much I loaned her on it. And then the total of what I loaned her.
Do you indicate whether or not the Micronta is what's known commonly as a radar detector?
It is a radar detector.
And the name of the individual who pawned those items as was identified to you on December 6, 1989.
Okay, as identified to me was Cammie Marsh Green at 5 High Ridge Drive, Holly Hill, Florida.
And can you tell the court what type of identification would have been used, if you can, from refreshing your recollection from that pawn slip?
Okay, based on this slip, it said it was a Florida driver's license, and I have the driver's license number notated here.
And that is contained on the pawn slip?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, we have no further questions.
Ma'am, good afternoon. My name is Billy Nolis, and I, along with Mr. Miller and Ms. Jenkins, represent Ms. Wuornos. When Mr. DeMoore asked you about the items, you needed to look at the document to refresh your recollection. Is that correct?
Yes.
And why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah. Why did you need to look at the document?
Because it's been 2 years, and I just want to refresh my memory of what this is. We see a lot of people every day, and I don't remember what happened 2 years ago.
Specifically, do you remember the day that these items were pawned?
No, I do not.
Do you remember 1 or 2 people came into the store that day?
I'm sure if it was in December of '89, which it says it was December 6th of '89, I'm sure there was a lot of people in the shop that day.
Do you remember if any, well, withdrawn? The item that's listed is a 35 millimeter camera
Yes, sir.
on the document. The document says nothing about a Polaroid, does it?
No, it does not.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Miller, is there any way, based upon the way you conduct your business, that an individual could walk into your pawn shop, you initial it, and not put their thumbprint on in your presence?
No, we always have them put the thumbprint and then we initial it.
And it's your testimony that on December the 6th, 1989, the person who came in identifying themselves as Cammie Marsh Green placed their thumbprint on the document that's now before your state's exhibit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very
Yes,
much. Your Honor, may this witness be excused?
I have one question, Your Honor. All right. Ma'am, you don't remember if 1 or 2 people came in for this actual pawning? In other words, if this Cammie Green person was accompanied by someone?
Please understand that was 2 years ago. I don't remember anything from 2 years ago.
Thank you.
You need to keep the witness.
No, sir. That should be released.
Yes, ma'am, you may stand down.
If they're trying to say that she didn't go in there and pawn the camera, the serial number's on the sheet, as well as her thumbprint. Nobody remembers 2 years ago what happened on a certain day, December 6th, 1989. What happened? I have no idea. I was probably in school. Or should have been. Oops.
Now, let me ask you that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You made part, a rule has been invoked that prohibits you from discussing your testimony until the case is concluded.
Yes, sir.
Anybody need to recall the witness?
Your Honor, I don't anticipate that being assessed.
You made a part.
Thank you.
Thank you. May it please the court.
Be quiet.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah.
Would you please tell us your full name and your occupation?
My name is Jenny T. Ahern, and I'm employed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at the Orlando Regional Crime Laboratory.
And is that Mr. or Mrs. Ahern?
Mrs.
Mrs. Ahern, how long have you been employed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Since January of 1981.
And have you attained any particular specialty while employed with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, sir. I have 2 areas of expertise. One is in latent print examination, and the other one is footwear tire track examination.
Have you had any type of schooling or educational background in latent print identification?
Yes, sir, I have. Prior to being employed by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I was employed by the Orange County Sheriff's Department. When I was employed by them, I was trained on the job to do fingerprint classification and searching as a technician. I also received training in the comparison of latent print examinations. I'm a member of the International Association for Identification and the Florida Division of the International Association for Identification, and attend training conferences by those agencies. I've also attained some training from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and from the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Ma'am, have you ever had occasion to testify in court of law as an expert witness in the field of latent fingerprint or palm print identification?
Yes, sir.
And how many times have you been qualified as an expert in the courts of Volusia County, Orange County, or the general central Florida area?
More than 200 times in the state of Florida.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen jury how many times in the course of your duties as a fingerprint examiner or palm print examiner you have had occasion to make identifications of individuals from what are known as latent fingerprints and also rolled impressions?
Thousands of times.
Please, the court, the state would offer Ms. Ahern at this time as an expert in the field of fingerprint, latent, and palm print identification.
Counsel, you may inquire.
No objection.
You may proceed.
Mrs. Ahern, could you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a latent fingerprint is?
Yes, sir. The palmar surfaces of your hand, you have different type of skin there than you'd have to do on the rest of your body. It has raised ridges, and along these ridges, you have tiny little sweat pores. A latent print is a reproduction of those raised ridges by perspiration or foreign matter that's on your hand onto an object when it's touched. The print is usually invisible, and to be made visible, it has to be processed through either powder, mechanical, or chemical means.
Now, ma'am, can you explain what the difference, if any, there is between a latent fingerprint and what is commonly known as an inked fingerprint or palm print?
Yes, sir. An inked print is a reproduction of these same raised ridges on the palmar surfaces of your hand by applying a thin layer of ink on those ridges and rolling it onto a card of contrasting color.
Ma'am, can you explain to the jury how is it possible for an individual to leave on an impression either by fingerprint or palm print?
By foreign matter that's on the hand and it's transferred onto the object that is touched.
Now, how do you go about comparing a latent fingerprint? And if you could explain a little bit of how a latent fingerprint might come into your possession for comparison purposes and what you would begin to do with it. 3 that time, you know.
Yes, sir. You asked me 2 questions at one time.
Gotcha. All right. Let's go back a little bit. How do you go about beginning your procedure to compare a latent fingerprint or palm print?
Okay. Usually when we received exhibits into the laboratory, they consist of the physical evidence itself. For example, a beer can. And that can will have prints on it, but we cannot see them. So we have to go through several processes to try to develop those prints. For example, we have a laser, or we can use super glue or powders, or if it's a paper item, we have different chemicals that we can use to make that print visible. Now, once the print is visible, we photograph it. And once we have the photographs, we try to compare those prints with ink prints. And what we're looking at in those latent prints to compare with the ink prints is what we call ridge characteristics. Now, ridge characteristics are like the ends of the ridges, or the ridges may run and fork into 2 ridges. We call those bifurcations. Or we may have a ridge that runs, forks into 2 ridges, and joins again to form 1 ridge, which we call those islands. And we also have dots, which are like tiny dots or periods. Those characteristics are what we use to compare a latent print with an ink print.
Now, can you explain to the jury how you used a fingerprint or palm print for the identification purposes of a specific person?
Yes, sir. There's actually 2 scientific bases for fingerprint identification. One is that the ridge configuration is unique. No 2 people have the same exact ridge configuration, and no person has 2 fingers with the same exact ridge configuration. Therefore, they are unique. The other one is permanence. From about 12 weeks after a baby is being formed, your fingerprints are formed. And from that time until decomposition, the ridge configuration never changes.
And let me ask you this, from any of the studies or any of the courses that you've taken from any authorized experts, are there any 2 known cases in the history of the world where more than one person had the same fingerprint?
Objection, Your Honor.
If you know.
If she knows.
No, sir, there has not been any.
So, can Can you tell us your opinion as to the specificity of fingerprint identification and as to the use of it in making a determination of a particular individual as having left a latent impression?
Could you please reword that? I'm
That's what
sorry.
I threw you on that for myself. Can you explain to the jury, for the purposes of your making an identification, do you have a set standard or is a set standard in your profession as to how many points of comparison you need between the latent fingerprint and the known fingerprint for you to call that as being a specific individual?
No, sir, there is no set number.
Do you have a set number?
No, sir, I do not.
Well, let me show you, ma'am, if I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
What has been previously marked for identification purposes as states K for identification. Let me ask you, ma'am, if you're able to recognize that document.
Yes, sir, I am.
And if you are able to recognize it, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury when you first came into possession of that document?
Yes, sir, may I record my notes?
Yes, with court's permission.
Yes, sir.
It was received into the laboratory on December 21st, 1990.
And can you tell me who would have brought that to you, if you know?
Investigator Jim Lau.
And you know Investigator Lau from having a professional relationship with him?
Yes, sir.
And do you know where he works?
For the Volusia County Sheriff's Department.
Now, ma'am, without telling me where you obtained this document, would you please look inside state Z for identification? Tell me if you can recognize it.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, ma'am, can you tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when you first came into possession of that document?
On December 22nd of 1990.
And without regarding to the location where you obtained it, can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you came into possession of that without the specifics of where it was located? Well, let me back up. You ever heard the term a Henry search?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled. Go ahead.
Can you explain what a Henry search is?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled. You may answer.
Your Honor, may we come sidebar?
All right.
Before you go. Mrs. Ahern, without describing where state Z for identification was obtained, do you recognize it?
Yes, sir, I do.
And did you use that document in any type of comparison with the thumb impression contained on the pawn slip before you?
Yes, sir, I did.
Now, let me ask you this, ma'am. Did you have an occasion to come into contact with Aileen Wuornos?
Yes, sir, I did.
Do you see, let me show you, if I may, please. What is marked for identification purposes as states B for identification. Do you recognize states B for identification?
Yes, sir, I do.
And if you're able to recognize states B for identification, can you tell us how you obtained or how state B's identification was processed by you?
Yes, sir. They're major case prints that I took on January 3rd, 1992 of Aileen Wuornos.
Now, do you see the individual whose rolled impression print you took on that date here in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir, I do.
Could you point her out for the record, please?
Yes, sir. She's the blonde-headed woman at the end of the table with the burgundy colored jacket on.
Stipulated, Your Honor.
State would accept the stipulation, Your Honor, that the witness is identifying the defendant, Aileen Wuornos. Thank you, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Ma'am, did you have an occasion to compare states K for identification, state Z for identification, and the known rolled impressions of the defendant, Aileen Wuornos?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us how you went about doing that? How would you make a comparison with those three documents and the use of them?
Using a magnifier, I put the exhibits beside each other and looked at the characteristics as I had described in all three of those exhibits to determine whether or not they were the same individual.
Okay. Now, states K for identification, if you'll please review it.
Okay. This one's K. Okay.
Is that under the name of Cammie Marsh Green?
Yes, it is.
And is that the item that you compared with state Z for identification as well as states B for identification?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether or not you found any identifying characteristics between states K for identification and states D for identification.
K, and which one?
K and Z.
Yes, sir, I did.
So tell me, how many points of identification did you find?
There was more than 14.
Okay. Based upon your examinations of states K and Z, you were able to make a determination whether or not the person under the name of Cammie Marsh Green on states K for identification and person on states D for identification, that of Lori Christine Brody, are one and the same person or a different person?
They are the same person,
Is it your expert opinion positively?
positively.
Now, I would ask you to look, please, at states double B for identification, the known role of impression that you took of Aileen Wuornos. I ask you, ma'am, if you used states double B for identification for any comparison purposes in relationship to states K and states Z for identification.
Yes, sir, I did.
And could you tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, whether or not you were able to make any determinations from that comparison?
Yes, sir.
Please tell them what it was.
That the thumbprint on the pawn shop ticket bearing the name of Cammie Marsh Green, the inked fingerprint card bearing the name of Lori Christine Grody, and the inked fingerprints taken by myself of Aileen Wuornos were all three of the same individual.
And that was the individual whose role and impressions you took and you've identified in this courtroom today.
That is correct.
May it please the court, at this time, the state would offer states Z, K, and double B for identification as state's evidence.
Counsel,
No objection, Your Honor.
subject to the objection bench, the objection was overruled. Let the item be received in marked and evidence. Mr. Seymour, will you get these items in as the clerk?
Thank you, Your Honor. It will be stipulated that Aileen Carol Wuornos, the defendant in this cause, is also known by the name of Lori Christine Grody, and that identification was made by this witness of the name of Lori Christine Grody with that of Cammie Marsh Green, and the role impressions that she has testified to as all being one and the same person. With that in mind, the state will be withdrawing for the offer of evidence the state's Z for identification, Your Honor, based upon the stipulation of counsel.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. This time, Your Honor, the state has no further questions.
Inquire, who's my,
I believe we have no questions, Your Honor.
No questions, Your
all
Honor.
right, may the witness be discharged?
If we may have a number, Your Honor, just in case something comes up.
All right, yeah, if you would leave a number with counsel.
Yes, her hair does not move. Yes, twinning. Gabby and I both said lots of Aquanet. That was 80s hair. It was the 90s, but it was early. We were hanging on to it with all our might, let me tell you. Except the shoulder pads, they can go. This lady, she made me like want to salute her. She's just very serious. Like, sit up straight. If the jury was falling asleep, she would have like reached over there and woke them up. So we've got one more witness, and then if you guys want to, we can do the pathologist. He's about 35 minutes. So let me see. This witness is about 10 minutes, so it's up to you guys. We had no hair extensions. It was all our own. Thank you. So we can do that. I know Flash Fan wants to do his thing at 2:30, so I definitely want to be done before that. But yeah, the hair extensions weren't a thing back then, at least not for us normal people. Like us, if you're maybe a celebrity, you could do that. They had things we don't have, but no. Nope, you just permed it and made it big with curls and blow drying it upside down and hairspray. Lots and lots of hairspray.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
They want telephone number.
Good. Before she's released, may we publish to the jury?
Do what?
We have no objection to being released. We'd like an opportunity to have the exhibits published to the
Sure,
jury.
go ahead, question while I'm deciding what we're going to do with her. If you would just leave your number with telephone. Rule isn't moving much.
Yes.
All right, may inquire.
Sir, would you state your name?
Lieutenant Carl N. Clifford,
And Lieutenant Clifford, who do you work for and how long have you worked there?
the Volusia County Sheriff's Department, 24 years.
And can you tell the jury? I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was still some of the exhibits that were published are still being examined. Maybe we wait just a few more moments.
Right.
No, Your Honor, the still.
My apologies, but YouTube won't let me say. I think I can be done a little after 2, Flash fan. It's been ridiculous today. I don't know what's threatening about that message. Anyway, Flash fan, go ahead and schedule. I will be done well before 2:30.
Still examining the fingerprint identification material.
Six times.
May I proceed now, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Clifford, did you become involved in the investigation of the homicide of Richard Mallory?
Yes, I did.
And in that phase of the investigation, did you assist in or participate in the recovery of a firearm?
Yes, I did.
Could you tell the jury, please, when and where that occurred?
Your Honor, object improper predicate relevance.
The subject to the objection set forth in Mr. Stein's conference. So rule, you may proceed.
Tell the jury when and where that occurred and where that area is located in Volusia County.
I'm the commander of the Volusia County Sheriff's Department Underwater Search and Recovery Team. And on January the 13th of 1991 through January the 16th, I commanded a team of divers searching for evidence in an area of the county on US 1 south of Nova Road between Port Orange and New Smyrna Beach, known as Rose Bay.
Now you indicated that was in 1991. January of 90.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
I'm just for clarification.
Yes, 1991.
Okay. Approximately a year ago.
Yes.
Please proceed.
We conducted the search around the Rose Bay Bridge, to be specific.
All right, sir. I would like you to look at exhibits for identification 0, 1 through 5 and ask if you recognize the area those exhibits represent.
Yes, these are photographs of the Rose Bay Bridge, the area that I just described.
Do they truly and accurately depict the area in which the firearm search proceeded?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, and do they truly and accurately depict the area as it appeared at the time of the search?
Yes.
Your Honor, we'd offer those into evidence as exhibit proper number.
Counsel, can you do these photographs
No objection, Your Honor.
that the item be received and marked in evidence by the proper number?
That States Exhibit 18,
I'd like you to look at the next set of photographs in front of you, sir, and ask if you know what those photographs represent.
Yes, I do.
All right, those are photographs double F, 1 through 3 for identification. Can you tell the jury what the photographs represent?
A firearm that was.
I'm not sure we've seen these.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just bring them back to counsel.
Sure. Whichever way you want to do it, they can approach the witness or you can take it to them. So long as we expedite.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I thought you were talking about the other photographs. No objection, Your Honor.
In evidence, or just no objection to seeing.
No objection to seeing on what's proper predicate.
Well, hello, Zach. Thank you for the $2 super chat. I appreciate it. How are you doing? I'm beginning to think you just went past Greencastle accent and you're either in Greensburg, Greenfield, Greene County. That's the only one. It's the only thing with green I can think of in the state. I hope you're doing well, Zach. It is good to see you. And your lovely deer, whatever. What is that? But yes, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate it. L. Jones. I didn't even see that it said that. My brain read Alex. It's funny because I get notifications sometimes. I'm like, Alex Jones is doing what? Because I don't care to watch him, but like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here.
All right.
Can you tell the jury what double F 1 through 3 represents?
This is a firearm that we recovered in the area that I just described on the afternoon of January the 16th
Of 91?
of 91, yes.
All right, sir. Could you describe to the jury your search efforts and how the recovery was effected?
We had been searching for 4 days. We searched both sides of the bridge in an area approximately 25 to 30 yards in each direction of the bridge. On the afternoon of the 16th, we concentrated our search area to the southeast corner of the bridge, between the seawall and the first set of pylons supporting the bridge.
And what was the result of the narrowed search?
That's where this firearm was found.
And the photographs represented in exhibits double F 1 through 3 depict the firearm as it appeared shortly after it was recovered.
That's correct.
What did you do with the firearm after you recovered it?
It was immediately placed in a styrofoam cooler containing the same water that we had recovered the firearm from.
Have you seen that cooler in the courtroom today, or?
Yes, I have.
And, where is it?
I believe it's sitting right in front of me.
After the firearm was placed in the cooler, what happened to it, to your knowledge?
I kept it with me in the vehicle that we keep our dive equipment in. I transported it to the Sheriff's Operations Center and placed it in an evidence room.
And what type of security access is permissible to the evidence room?
It's locked at all times, and there are 3 keys to that room.
And did you make any markings, or were you able to in any way place any type of particular identification on the firearm itself?
I didn't place any markings on the firearm because it was rusty and covered with silt, and I didn't want to disturb the integrity of the gun, but I did mark the cooler.
And did you examine that cooler sufficient to determine whether or not that is the same cooler?
Yes, it is. It has my initials on it.
Your Honor, please, we would offer into evidence double F 1 through 3, which are photographs of the firearm as it appeared in its corroded condition before it was cleaned up.
Counsel? Let the evidence be received and marked in evidence.
Dissect exhibit 19.
I'd like you to examine exhibit double D for identification.
Object to publishing the jury.
Stipulated that Mr. Tanner has popped it open and done all that stuff.
Your Honor, we would offer the pistol that was recovered from the Rose Bay Bridge into evidence this time.
Oh, no.
Subject to the previous objection.
Let the evidence be received and marked in evidence by the proper number.
Dissect exhibit 20.
I think it's funny. It's not funny, haha. It's funny they went to the Circle K to get a cooler to keep that firearm in that they recovered. Very scientific. Nobody's hair moves, and but this guy keeps moving his head like he wants it to move. Like maybe he had long hair or something. And then he cut it and became a rave hair model, like Zach said. Yes, absolutely. You would be, if this trial was scratch and sniff, you'd be high off the Aquanet fumes. And that's maybe why everybody thought the 80s were so great. No, Breckenridge is in Colorado. But thanks, Flash Me. Yes, skiing in Colorado and then coming to ski in Indiana or Ohio. Sorry. It's not the same. It's not the same. That's not nice.
Yeah, I had just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yours, Anchorage. You're forgiven for that one, Flashman.
Don't have any further questions for the witness.
I have no questions this witness.
I need to keep the witness or maybe discharged.
Maybe discharge, Your Honor.
Still discharged, Your Honor.
You may stand down in the park, sir. You are under the rule that you do not give testimony in the case concluded.
All right, here comes the forensic pathologist. He looks a little grumpy. And back to no closed captioning. So I don't understand. All right, we're going to do this guy and then we will wrap it up. He kind of looks a little miserable.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, would you state your name, your current profession, and give the jury, please, your educational and professional background?
My name is Arthur Joseph Botting. That's Botting. I'm a physician. I specialize in pathology. I'm formerly the medical examiner for the 7th Medical Examiners District, Florida. I graduated from New York Medical College in 1960, following which I did a rotating internship at the Royal Victoria Hospital in Montreal, Canada. After this, I did a 4-year pathology residency at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And following that, I was certified by the American Board of Pathology in anatomic, clinical, radioisotope, chemical, and forensic pathology. I'm licensed to practice in the state of Florida.
Sir, is your specialty for the past years been that of a forensic pathologist?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been actually practicing as a forensic pathologist?
Approximately 12 years.
And can you tell the jury what a forensic pathologist does? How is that different from you are a regular medical doctor as well, are you not?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what forensic pathology consists of and how that's different from the practice of other medical arts?
Well, forensic pathology is the application of pathology, which is the study of abnormal tissue and organ function to questions at the law. Basically, what I did in the years that I practiced forensic pathology was to investigate violent and suspicious death.
All right, sir. And did you have occasion to practice primarily in Volusia County for the past, 12 years?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we would respectfully offer Dr. Arthur Botting as a specialist in the field of forensic pathology.
Your Honor, we do not desire any voir dire of this witness.
Proceed. Dr. Botting, did there come a time that you performed an autopsy here in Volusia County on an individual that was identified to you as Mallory?
Yes, sir. A 51-year-old white male.
All right, sir. Can you tell the jury, please, what procedures you followed, what observations you made, and what your conclusions were?
We received the body in the clothing in which it was found. It had been placed in a body bag, a plastic body bag, and it was brought to the morgue at the Halifax Hospital in Daytona Beach. We proceeded to remove the body from the bag and to examine it in the clothed state. We made our observations on the clothing, and then proceeded to remove the clothing and to examine the exterior of the body.
All right, sir, may I interrupt you just momentarily? I would ask you to look at Exhibit H for identification. Does this appear to be the shirt with which the subject was clothed at the time you began your examination?
Objection, leading. Objection, overruled. Your Honor, I would object in publishing to the jury as well.
Well, you want to have the witness take it outside and do it so he can make a determination who says, or would it be convenient if you do it right here while we're on the record?
Your Honor, my objection stands.
All right, your objection is overruled. Thank you. Examine the item.
Yes, sir. This is the shirt or the type of shirt that was.
All right, after the shirt was removed, sir, could you tell the jury what you did next?
We examined the exterior of the body, and in doing this, we noted that there were gunshot wounds on the upper part of the body, specifically involving the right arm, the right side of the chest, and the left side of the chest. These were both on the front part of the chest. The body was partially decomposed. The head and neck had been reduced to skeleton remains, and the upper part of the chest was, the soft tissues in the skin were undergoing degeneration.
Now, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I would like you to look at State's Exhibit M, Composite 4, for identification, and ask if you recognize what that photograph purports to represent.
This is a frontal view of the upper portion of the body upon which we did the autopsy. I think that
right,
describes
sir.
the photo.
Thank you. And is there an identification number which was affixed there for the purpose of preserving the integrity of that body for record purposes?
Yes, sir.
And is that identification number consistent with the autopsy about which you are now testifying?
Yes, sir. 89-428.
Thank you. All right, sir. Could you tell the jury, please, what you did next and what your observations were?
After we made our observations of the exterior of the body, we proceeded to do our dissection. We opened the body cavities. We took each of the organs, examined them individually, and recorded our observations.
All right, sir. Can you tell the jury, particularly with regard to the any trauma that appears to have been inflicted upon the body prior to the death of the individual, Richard Charles Mallory?
Immediately prior, I don't think I understand the question.
Yes. Could you determine whether or not the person you autopsied had received any gunshot wounds?
Yes, sir. On the front of the chest on the left side, 54 inches above the sole of the left foot, we noted a gunshot entrance wound. And upon opening the chest cavity, we found that this bullet had gone through the front of the chest wall, gone through the underlying left lung, gone through the back wall of the chest, the rear wall of the chest. It had perforated the shoulder blade, and we recovered a .22 caliber bullet in the soft tissues lying above the shoulder blade. Then on the opposite side, on the right arm, at roughly the same level, we noted a gunshot entrance wound, and the bullet had perforated the soft parts of the right arm. It didn't strike the bone or anything that would have deflected it from its true course. It exited the inner aspect of the arm and then struck the right side of the chest, and we recovered a bullet in the soft tissues on the front chest wall. In roughly the same area, there was a second bullet that had entered the skin at that point. It went through the chest wall. It struck the left lung, exited the left lung, and we recovered a bullet in the left chest cavity. And that's as far as that bullet went.
And where did that one enter? One you just
That entered the right side of the chest on the front. A fourth bullet had been recovered lying free in the body bag.
With regard to the state of decomposition of the upper part of the body, doctor, and especially this area up around the neck and the upper shoulders, were you able to see any wounds in that area, or with decomposition have hindered that?
There was no evidence of any wounding to the spine, the bony structure of the neck, and this essentially was all that remained. So we know, to answer your question directly, we didn't have any tissue there to notice the effects of a bullet wound.
So if a bullet had gone up into the neck area but not in the bone, you wouldn't be able to even track it because of decomposition.
That's correct.
Leading, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
Were you able to determine a cause of death with regard to deceased Richard Charles Mallory?
Yes, sir. The two bullets that struck the left lung caused a tremendous amount of hemorrhage, and that was the fatal mechanism.
And being a medical doctor, and particularly a forensic pathologist, I would like you to, if you can, describe the mechanism of death with hemorrhaging in the lungs. How did that come about?
The
overruled.
The lung has a very rich blood supply, and when the bullet struck it, it tore up a lot of small blood vessels, and this allowed the rapid escape of a large amount of blood, plus the fact that once the chest wall and or the lung were perforated, this would allow pressurized air to enter the chest cavity, which is normally sealed and acts as a vacuum. and this would impair respirations as well. So you've got two very basic things working against the normal function of the lung, vital functions.
Could you describe what is occurring physiologically to the individual's body? How does death?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
There is a point that is reached where so much blood is lost that you cannot maintain an efficient and effective circulation for the brain and for the heart, and life ceases.
Was there any wound to the heart or the major arteries that you see?
No, sir.
So these were, as far as you can determine, strictly lung wounds.
That was essentially all we found.
By the nature of the wounds, would there be any impairment to respiration?
Objection has been answered, Your Honor.
Overruled. That's the question.
Yes, sir. As I say, the left chest cavity is ruptured, and air is allowed to come in under pressure, and this will cause the lung to collapse.
And what effect would that have upon the respiration of the individual?
Well, it'll significantly impair the ability to move air in and out of the lungs and to ventilate.
And would you describe to the jury, in your opinion as a forensic pathologist, was death instantaneous?
No, sir. No, you have to allow the blood to escape, and that takes a certain amount of time.
With regard to the individual, what would the effect upon the individual's ability to breathe be?
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
It would be impaired
But they would still be able to breathe
to breathe.
for a while.
Yes, sir. In fact, I would think that they would be trying very desperately to breathe under the circumstances.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
Do you have an opinion based upon your medical experience and training as to how long an individual, or in fact, in particular, Mr. Mallory, would live with these wounds before he would die?
Objection speculative, Your Honor.
Within a reasonable span of time.
I would say roughly 10 to 20 minutes.
Sir, I would like you to examine exhibits GG for identification, and ask if you can recognize the containers and the objects contained therein.
The first container has the number ME89428. It has the date 12/14/89, and it's listed as John Doe number 13. It also has the notation body bag, and it has my initials AJB on there.
And what do those markings indicate to you, sir?
Well, this is the routine that was followed. We would label the containers with the autopsy accession number, followed by the name, if known, on the label, and the date when the specimen was collected. I would put my initials on there to show that I was the one who had placed the bullet in the container, and of course the designation of the area from which it was retrieved.
All right, sir, and would you examine the contents of that container?
It's a deformed, non-jacketed .22 caliber bullet.
And where did that come from?
This was recovered from the body bag.
Would you look at the next container and examine the contents of it, please?
The next container has the number 89428, the name John Doe, number 13, the date 12/14/89. It has my initials, AJB, and it was recovered from the left chest.
Would you examine the contents, please?
A deformed, non-jacketed, .22 caliber bullet.
Thank you. Would you examine the next container?
This one is labeled ME89, 428, John Doe, number 13, 12/14/89. My initials are on the label, and this is labeled right chest wall.
Sure. Would you examine the contents, please?
A deformed, non-jacketed .22 caliber bullet.
And the fourth container.
The label states ME89 428, John Doe, number 13, 12/14/89. My initials are on the label, and this one is left posterior scapula.
Can you describe to the jury where that location is? Left posterior scapula.
The scapula is the shoulder blade.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. May the doctor step down for just a moment?
Certainly.
Would you, Dr. Cleveland? Could you use me as a body to demonstrate to this jury that last bullet recovery and entrance point?
Can you turn it around, please?
Yes, sir.
This area here is where the scapula is, and roughly in this area here is where we covered the bullet. It was between the skin and the bony structure.
Thank you, Doctor. And with regard to the four containers, or the four bullets, which you just examined from those containers, those were four projectiles removed from the body or the body bag of this autopsy.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we would offer the four containers with their contents and evidence at this time.
Counsel? The test received the bar at the proper number.
That is stated exhibit 21.
Doctor, with regard to the exhibit M for identification, composite 4, which is the photograph that's before you, does that photograph demonstrate the state of decomposition of the neck and upper shoulder area as it appeared at the time of the autopsy by which you testified?
Yes, sir.
And also, sir, do you notice what appears to be a oval-shaped wound to the right chest in the near, or what appears to be an oval-shaped wound to the right chest in the vicinity of the right nipple on that photograph?
To the right of the right nipple, yes, sir.
And is that consistent with the testimony about which you just testified, or the autopsy about which you just testified?
Yes, sir.
And would that photograph be of assistance to you if you demonstrated that photograph to the jury at this time?
Objection.
Explaining your testimony.
It hasn't been offered.
Yes, sir. Would that be of assistance in demonstrating the testimony which you have delivered to the jury at this time?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we would offer photographic evidence.
I don't think that's clear again with those. You can state your record there. We won't see if you're inferior or not less firm, but there's no more match that comments. We didn't have resolution that workers having a difficult time keeping accurate. You have an objection, say.
Yeah, we need to take a look at the photograph.
All right, sir. You can photograph.
Your Honor, we would object to the photograph under 9404 on relevancy grounds, on the fact that there are other items of evidence the state's been employed to depict the same thing, and on its lack of probative value under the circumstances. Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed, Mr. Chair.
Would you track verbally for the jury the trajectory of these 4 bullets through the body from your autopsy result? In other words, again, would it be of assistance if you could demonstrate that either from a photograph or from using, I was going to say a dummy, a live.
Perhaps I could stand up.
Yes,
Yes, go ahead and stand up.
okay. Maybe do that, Your Honor.
There is a bullet wound on the front of the left side of the chest, which the course of it was roughly from front to back without any deviation from side to side. This is the bullet that went through the front of the chest wall, through the left lung, through the rear chest wall, through the shoulder blade, and was recovered roughly back here. There was another bullet wound that struck the outside part of the right arm, went through the soft tissues of the right arm, exited the inner surface of the arm, and then struck the right side of the chest. And this was recovered roughly in this location in the fat that lies below the skin. A second entrance wound was present on the front of the right front of the chest. And this bullet went through the skin, the fat below the skin, the chest wall, and was traveling from right to left and on a slight course of front to back. After going through the chest wall, struck the left lung and exited the lung, and then just had spent its energy and was left lying in the left chest cavity. The fourth bullet that was recovered, as I say, was just lying free in the body bag.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, I would ask you to examine State's Exhibit II for identification and ask if you recognize that document.
This is the death certificate that I completed after doing the autopsy on Mr. Mallory.
Your Honor, please, we'd offer the death certificate and evidence this time.
Counsel, did you do this out?
You have, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor, it's There's no tremendous relevancy to it, but there's no tremendous objection to it either.
There's no objection, did you say, or do you do object?
We'll object on all this.
All right, overruled.
Thank
you. Let the item marked on that property.
State's Exhibit 22.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for Dr. Body. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Johnson, you may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Doctor, I just want to make one thing perfectly clear. When you were demonstrating with Mr. Tanner the wound to the back, the scapula there, that in fact is where the bullet ended up, is it not?
Yes, sir.
The actual entrance wound was from the front.
Yes, sir.
The shirt, which was shown to you earlier, did you test residual body fluids on this shirt?
No, sir.
Did you test for semen or blood or anything like that?
No, sir.
And did you check the size of that shirt?
No, sir.
Did you determine the size of the decedent in this case?
No, sir.
So you never made any effort to determine the size, the weight, the height, the girth of the decedent?
That's correct.
And you, in fact, did not draw any diagrams or anything in your autopsy report, did you?
No, sir. Routinely, I don't.
Other examiners do, in fact, do that, do they not?
Objection, Your Honor.
Is that not fairly standard for a medical examiner to draw a diagram indicating the entrance and exit wounds?
I don't know whether I'd use the term standard, but I know that it's popular.
You never visited the site where this body was recovered, did you?
That's right.
And based on your testing on this particular individual, you could not determine the length of time that the body had been there, could you?
That's correct.
And you could not determine from any of your tests and any of the things that you did, the position of the assailant relative to the decedent, could you?
That's correct.
You spoke before about, I think Mr. Tanner, when he had you do that demonstration, said something about the last bullet recovery. And what he meant by that, of course, was that's the last bullet you recovered.
That's correct.
Correct? You can't determine the sequence of shots, can you?
That's correct.
And you cannot determine what was happening between each shot, can you?
No, sir.
You don't know what the decedent was doing between each shot, do you?
No, sir.
Also, because of the state of decomposition, you cannot ascertain whether or not there was any head trauma. True?
I didn't see any marks on the skull, and when we opened the skull cavity, we didn't see any evidence of any hemorrhage in the cavity. I can say that much.
Clearly, you can suffer a head injury without those indicators, though, can you not?
Yes, sir.
And you've already testified you couldn't determine whether anything had happened to the neck area. True?
That's correct.
Now, you also did a report on the, or did a toxicology report on this individual, did you not?
Yes, sir. Blood alcohol.
All right. And in fact, you were able to determine that the individual had been drinking.
Yes, sir.
In fact, you were able to determine that the individual would have been under the influence of alcohol at the time of his death. True?
That's debatable.
Okay. You determined the blood alcohol level at the time of your autopsy to be a 0.05, correct?
That's right.
And do you recall stating in your deposition that that means to you that the individual would have been under the influence?
He would have just been at the lower limits where the influence would be recognized.
I take it from your answer that means he would have been under the influence.
He could
even at
have.
the lower limits.
He could have.
All right. Now, this body had decomposed somewhat, had it not?
Yes, sir.
And is it your medical opinion that the fact that decomposition would have no impact on the blood alcohol level of the deceased?
That's right.
Decomposition indicates the presence of bacteria, does it not?
Among other things.
And bacteria break down alcohol, do they not?
Yes, they do. But on the other side of the coin, there are some bacteria that can produce ethanol.
But your testimony is it had no effect.
That's right. I didn't see anything on looking at that blood sample that would have made me believe that there were bacteria growing in it.
I have no further questions.
Mayor? Yes, Your Honor, we would like to offer the shirt of evidence. I forgot to ask that that be given an evidentiary tag.
No objection, Your Honor.
But that will be received in March.
And Your Honor, with regard to the one photograph that is thus far not been allowed in evidence,
All right. That guy, that witness was like a nice for like Archie Bunker, which some of you guys aren't going to get this because you're too young. Archie Bunker's nice brother. That's what he reminded me of. From the East Coast. I guess, I don't know, where was Archie Bunker? They were in the East. They were on the East. Were they in New York? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I said I was not going to keep everything below 2 hours. Sorry, I didn't. I lied. But I'm going to wrap this up here just a second. Okay, Flashman. If you know that reference, then probably everybody does. New York. Thank you. I had to think of the Jeffersons where they were moving on up to the east side. Sorry. Did you notice not a single person that has handled a piece of evidence has gloves on? That's something else that has changed. He's touching those bullets. Yes, us old folks do know. Oh, Carmen. Oh, Carmen. I keep forgetting. I made a note to tell you guys. If you have Hulu, I don't think they were in Milwaukee. Were they in Milwaukee? I don't know. The Jeffersons were in New York, and they moved from the Bunkers neighborhood. I have no idea. Even I'm a little bit too young for that. Only saw it in reruns. But if you have Hulu, I have watched. They have two really good docuseries out, and they're very short. I think one's like 4 episodes. They both might be 4 episodes. I'm not sure. One is on the Fox Hollow farm, which is probably about an hour and a half from me. It's up by Indianapolis in Hamilton County. And that is Herb Baumeister. He allegedly unalived several men back in the 90s. And it was kind of a situation like this one because they were gay men. And they think he was taking them from Indianapolis, downtown Indianapolis, gay bars. Not like abducting them per se. He was convincing them to go with him back to his house. He had like a very nice house. It had a pool, indoor pool, and he would take them apparently to the pool and do things and then unalive them. They have found, I saw 10,000 and I saw 100,000. So I don't know if one person forgot to put a 0 in the other, or that somebody put one too many zeros. But they have found thousands of bone fragments on this property. And they had found a ton of bone fragments on this property and did not arrest Baumeister when they had him. Like they said they didn't have enough to hold him on, which is amazing because one of the journalists in the docuseries made an excellent point that if you found bones in her backyard, she's pretty sure she wouldn't be allowed to walk out that day. And I agree. So they did not arrest him at that time. He drives to Canada and offs himself. He self-deletes. They're still trying to identify remains from there. I think he's the coroner in Hamilton County. Super nice guy. The guy that owns the property now, he's kind of weird. I'm just saying that. But he allows everybody back onto the property to investigate whatever. And then there's a guy that was supposedly the only survivor of Baumeister, who maybe wasn't a survivor at all and maybe was. Now they're looking at him differently. He's very, very careful in what he says. But if you have a chance to watch that docuseries, like I said, it's 4 episodes. They're very, very good. It's good. The other one I watched was, and I can't remember if this one's 3 or 4 episodes, but it's Ruby Frankie. And I had not watched a whole lot about that situation. And I've seen 2 shows on it in the past couple of weeks. Her family, her ex-husband, her oldest son, her oldest daughter, they all are speaking in this and telling what was going on, her neighbors. It was good because I get kind of about docuseries because you got to think the person that's telling the story, they're giving you the facts they want to give you. But these seem to be done very, very well, very, very balanced, for lack of a better word. So if you have Hulu, watch those. I would highly recommend them. And they're good. Okay, Gabby, I will do that. Also, if you are not a Gabby, can you or Flashfan, I guess, put Flashfan's link for his Discord up? Flashfan is going to have a chill and chat stream here in like 7 minutes in his Discord. And so if you want to come and join that, you don't have to be a member of anything to join Flashfan's Discord or my Discord. We just have fun there, and it's really all we do. So that's all I have for today. I told Flashfan I would be done before 2:30, so I'm going to get there. We will pick up on Wednesday, I believe at noon Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Adair Time, 10 a.m. Sir Frank Time. I don't know anybody. I think, you know who's in Colorado? Felicia told you so. She's in Colorado. Her time would be, 11, 10, 9. Colorado and Nebraska, Sir Frank and Colorado are on the same time. I'm losing my mind. Alrighty. I'm going to go. And you guys all have a great day. Thank you for joining me. If you please could hit that like and subscribe button on your way out, I would appreciate it. If you're on replay, I appreciate you too. And if you could do the same, I would also appreciate that. I'm about to get rated by the Great Danes, so I'm out and I'll see you guys all later. And have a great day.